modern life, we are often stretched thin by too many things: the expectations of others, the fear of judgment, relationships that have grown unhealthy, and the relentless pressure to always succeed. Most of us carry invisible burdens without even realizing it. We cling to everything: reputation, emotions, outcomes, as if letting go would mean losing ourselves. But the truth is the opposite. Only by releasing our grip do we truly find our path. Stoicism does not teach us to abandon life. It teaches us to abandon the illusion of control, to let go of dependence on what lies beyond our reach, and to build a life grounded in inner strength. This video is not about avoidance or indifference. It is about consciously choosing what is worthy of our life's energy. When we learn to let go, we also learn to focus not on everything, but on what truly matters. 1. Less but deeper. The power of simplicity in Stoic thought. We live in an age of excesses, of information, choices, material wealth, and expectations. It seems everyone is encouraged to have more achievements, more relationships, more recognition. Yet the more we chase the more hollow we feel. It is in such a world that Stoic philosophy emerges as a wake-up call. To live freely, we must first learn to live with less. Stoicism does not promote extreme asceticism, but it does champion the value of reduction. For the Stoics, peace and inner freedom come not from accumulation, but from the ability to let go of what is unnecessary. This is not merely material minimalism. It is about releasing the grip of unchecked desires, inflated expectations, and negative emotions from the mind. Clearing out one's physical space is a practical starting point. A cluttered home often mirrors a cluttered mind. When we hold on to things we no longer need, it reveals a fear of loss, and in turn creates mental disorder. Removing the excesses frees the mind, bringing focus back to what truly matters, both in our outer and inner lives. Beyond physical space, simplifying our actions is equally vital. The modern schedule is crammed with tasks, leaving little room for actually living. Stoics do not seek busyness, they seek intention. Every action should be done with awareness, not just to check it off, but to cultivate steadiness of thought. Focusing on a few meaningful actions each day reconnects us with purpose and shields us from the invisible weights of multitasking culture. One practical exercise is minimalist journaling. Each day, noting 3 tasks, 3 gratitudes, and 1 thing to release. This trims mental clutter, realigns our energy, and prevents us from drifting into autopilot. These small acts are the seeds of clarity, resilience, and direction within. Minimalism in Stoicism also means loosening the grip of others' opinions. Many live in fear of judgment, rejection, or not being accepted. They spend their energy pleasing society while forgetting to live by their own values. The Stoic chooses self-sovereignty. They seek no validation from the crowd, only from the strength within. When we are no longer ruled by the need to be approved, we can live truthfully, speak truthfully, and act out of principle, not fear. To simplify is also to purify emotion. According to the Stoics, it's not the events that harm us, but how we respond. A small setback becomes tragedy if the mind is fragile. But if we learn to step back from instant emotion, we can face things with equanimity. Observing, naming, and understanding emotions, rather than reacting to them, is the most effective form of psychological minimalism. When we clear the mind of anger, envy, and needless anxiety, we create space for calm, reason, and gratitude. These don't appear by chance. They must be invited in, and they only arrive when we are willing to release what no longer serves our growth. The Stoic ideal of less but deeper is not about lack. It is a mark of wisdom. For when no longer governed by unrestrained desire, we begin to see clearly what is essential, what is dependent, and what must be let go. It is this simplicity that creates depth in thought and in how we live. In a world obsessed with accumulation and pursuit, choosing less becomes a quiet act of rebellion. It is a declaration. I choose clarity over cases, meaning over quantity, and freedom over bondage to what lies beyond my control. And in that choice lies the true foundation of the tranquility the modern soul continues to seek. 2. Letting flow. Not giving up, but choosing freedom. In Stoic philosophy, letting flow is not merely about surrendering or rejecting action. It is a higher state of awareness, where one consciously ceases to control what is inherently beyond one's reach. Unlike resignation, which carries a tone of passivity and defeat, letting flow in the Stoic spirit is a deliberate act. It is a rational decision to safeguard inner stability amid the uncontrollable turbulence of the external world. The Stoic understands that much of our suffering does not come from events themselves, but from the desire to control their outcomes. When one places excessive expectations on things outside their domain, like the feelings of others, the course of history, or even success, they unknowingly hand over their emotional reins to the outside world. Letting flow is the process of reclaiming that control by refusing to be ruled by external forces. A central concept in practicing this is the distinction between what we can and cannot control. This is the bedrock of all Stoic reasoning. What we can control includes our thoughts, actions, reactions, and decisions. In contrast, results, others' responses, and external events lie beyond our influence. Once this is clear, the practitioner focuses only on cultivating the inner life, letting the rest drift by like water. Accepting the impermanence of life is crucial to letting flow. Everything changes: seasons, weather, emotions, and relationships. Trying to hold tightly to what cannot be held is like gripping sand. The tighter the grasp, the faster it slips through. Stoicism encourages us to move with life's current, not against it. This does not mean apaisasti. It means understanding that everything arrives and departs in its time, and the most fitting response is calm acceptance. A common image for this process is a leaf floating on water. The leaf does not command the stream, nor does it resist it. When one learns to let go, their emotions and inner world become as light as that leaf, no longer weighed down by fear, expectation, or regret. This act of release is not weakness. On the contrary, it demands great inner strength. Letting flow is not just an abstract idea. It can be practiced daily through small, tangible steps. One effective method is writing unsent letters. When facing hurt, disappointment, or resentment, writing down your feelings without the intention to send allows for emotional release without harming others or oneself. The letter needs no reply because its purpose is not to change the other, but to free the writer. Another practice is letting go of one small thing each day. This might be an old item, a negative habit, an unnecessary worry, or even a recurring thought that drains you. Done consistently, this clears the mind, leaving us lighter, not because circumstances have changed, but because our relationship to them has. Learning to let flow also sharpens one's ability to live in the present. The Stoic is not haunted by the past or paralyzed by the future. They understand that the present is the only time we truly possess. Every moment spent trapped in regret or projected into anxiety is a moment lost to now. Letting go of unneeded thoughts restores our attention to the present, the only space where real action unfolds. At the heart of Stoic thought is internal agency. Letting flow does not mean silence in the face of injustice or the denial of emotion. Rather, it means choosing calm, discerning what we can influence and what we cannot. With clarity of perception, our actions become more precise and effective, unclouded by fleeting emotion or blind reaction. Letting flow, then, is a life skill, not only reducing stress, but nurturing gratitude and inner freedom. When we stop trying to control everything, we begin to value what remains: a deep breath, a quiet afternoon, a sincere conversation. By releasing what cannot be held, we uncover what was always there, hidden beneath the noise of the mind. 3. We forge our chains with our own thoughts. In Stoic philosophy, one of the most profound and influential imama is this: we are not bound by circumstances, but by our own thinking. It sounds simple, yet it is the key that unlocks the path to inner freedom. The chains that make us suffer often don't come from the outside world, but are forged by limiting beliefs, unrealistic expectations, and quietly nurtured fears within the mind. Stoicism affirms it is not events themselves that cause suffering, but how we perceive and respond to them. Epictetus captured this with clarity. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. If our thinking is distorted by negative assumptions, vague fears, or anxious speculation, even a favorable situation can feel unstable. Conversely, a free mind can find peace even in adversity. A clear example is the fear of failure. It is one of the most common chains. Many people never begin anything new because they fear a poor outcome, ridicule, or not being good enough. But to the Stoic, failure is merely feedback, not a sentence. If one accepts that failure is natural in the process of growth, the fear begins to dissolve. But if failure is seen as personal collapse, then anxiety will dominate and self-limitation will follow. Another subtle chain is perfectionism. The desire for excellence isn't wrong, but when it becomes an obsession, it breeds constant dissatisfaction. One becomes disappointed in oneself, in others, and in life. Stoicism sees perfectionism as born from the illusion of control. When we accept that the world is imperfect, people are imperfect, and we ourselves are imperfect, only then can relief arrive. True freedom isn't found in getting everything to align with our desires. It's found in the ability to live well in a world that never fully will. The judgment of others is another powerful chain. Many live their lives according to external standards, seeking approval, affection, and high regard. Ironically, the more we chase validation, the more we lose ourselves. Marcus Aurelius once urged, "Don't waste your energy wondering what others think of you. Rather than focus on what cannot be controlled, others' thoughts and emotions." The Stoic commits to living in alignment with their own values, no matter who is watching. The Stoic philosophers also emphasized that one of the heaviest chains is how we define ourselves. When self-worth is tied to status, possessions, brands, or achievements, one becomes a slave to those very things. The loss of a job, a sum of money, or a title can feel like personal collapse. Meanwhile, the Stoic separates the true self from social roles. They define themselves by character, wisdom, integrity, courage, qualities no one can take away. One powerful tool for breaking mental chains is asking, "Am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid?" This question clarifies the motive behind an action. If the answer is rooted in fear of judgment, abandonment, or failure, the action doesn't stem from freedom. The Stoic stresses intentional thought and choice. Every decision must arise from reason, not reactive emotion. Another classic Stoic practice is premeditatio malorum, contemplating the worst-case scenario. When one imagines the worst that could happen and sees they can endure or overcome it, Anxiety loses its grip. This is not a pessimistic exercise, but a way to prepare the mind and act from strength rather than fear. Deliberately exposing oneself to rejection, criticism, or misunderstanding also helps dissolve these chains. When someone experiences rejection and realizes it doesn't destroy them, they grow stronger. The Stoic does not avoid emotion, but refuses to let emotion overrule reason. They learn to remain grounded amid praise or blame, desire or fear, and in doing so, achieve enduring spiritual freedom. The idea that we forge our chains with our own thoughts reminds us that freedom is not something granted from outside, but cultivated from within. When a person realizes they have the power to choose their thoughts, their reactions, and their perspective, they begin to break the chains. Freedom, for the Stoic, is not found in circumstances, but in the sovereignty of the mind in response to them. Finally, the process of dismantling mental chains doesn't happen overnight. It requires constant observation, discipline, and patience. But each clarified thought, each false belief replaced by insight, each fear overcome, becomes a step toward a lighter, more awakened, and freer life. 4. Freedom doesn't require departure, only a new perspective. Stoic philosophy teaches that freedom does not necessarily come from changing external circumstances. Many people mistakenly believe that to find inner peace, they must leave their job and a relationship, move somewhere new, or completely overhaul their lives. But according to the Stoics, real change does not begin outside. It begins in how we see the world. At the heart of this idea lies the power to transform perception. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This reveals that freedom is not in escaping our conditions, but in redefining them through a deeper, more intentional lens. This shift in perspective is not a form of self-deception. Stoics do not deny reality. They face it with reason, and from there, learn to live in harmony with what is. Instead of saying, "This is a problem," they ask, "What virtue is this an opportunity to practice?" Moving from the mindset of a victim to that of an agent is one of the core capacities that creates inner freedom. A clear example is the workplace. Many people feel drained and overwhelmed by their job and assume that only by quitting can they be happy. But from a Stoic viewpoint, rather than immediately seeking escape, one should first examine their mindset and attitude toward their work. Is the exhaustion truly from the job, or from unrealistic expectations, constant comparison, or unexamined emotions? In many cases, by changing one's approach, such as focusing on what is within control, setting clear boundaries, or letting go of perfectionism, one can feel lighter, even within the same environment. This not only brings peace, but also cultivates the strength to thrive under any condition, a virtue the Stoics regarded as among the highest. The ability to leave without moving also involves emotional distancing. When someone no longer gets swept away by anger, envy, or chronic worry, they create an inner space of freedom. This is not numbness. It is awareness that emotions are signals, not commands. The Stoic learns to observe emotions as an outsider, not allowing them to dictate actions or define self-worth. Practicing gratitude is another powerful way to shift perspective. When one focuses on what is already present instead of what is missing, the sense of lack gives way to a sense of sufficiency. Gratitude is not passive acceptance. It is a way of forming a positive relationship with the present moment. This mindset reveals hidden opportunities that dissatisfaction may have obscured. Stoics also emphasize the role of expectations in shaping perception. when expectations are unrealistic or excessive. Disappointment becomes inevitable. Thus, they train themselves to set expectations based on reality and what is within their control. This reduces frustration while increasing acceptance and rational action. In this way, comfort doesn't require changing conditions, only adjusting the standards by which they are judged. This principle applies to personal relationships as well. When someone feels hurt by another's actions, the common reaction is to cut ties, withdraw, or retaliate. But the Stoic asks a different question. Is my reaction serving tranquility and virtue, or simply echoing emotional impulse? They choose calm and set clear boundaries without needing to end the relationship. They refuse to let others' behavior dictate their character. Freedom in Stoic thought is not a fleeting feeling, but a sustained state of mind built on clarity and wise reaction. Changing perspective does not alter reality, but it transforms how we live within it. As a result, even if one cannot leave a place, a situation, or a person, one can still establish freedom in the mind. This transformation does not happen in a moment. It is the fruit of steady practice, from observing thought patterns and adjusting expectations to accepting imperfection and rediscovering trust in core virtues like wisdom, justice, and courage. When practiced consistently, inner freedom no longer depends on escape. It is found through understanding and reseeing. Stoic philosophy does not dismiss the desire to change one's situation, but before taking action to walk away, it proposes something deeper. First, walk away from your old way of seeing. For if the mind remains chained to the same reactive patterns, then even a change of environment will not free you from restlessness and inner conflict. Changing perception before changing circumstance is the path to enduring freedom. 5. The quiet strength of solitude. Stoicism values self-mastery and inner peace, two qualities impossible to attain without learning to face oneself. One of the foundational practices that leads to this freedom is the ability to live in solitude, not in the literal sense of isolation or cutting off from society, but as a form of inner stillness, where one no longer depends on the presence or opinions of others to define their worth. From the Stoic perspective, solitude is not the absence of others, but freedom from their influence. This means that even in a crowd, if one does not seek validation, if one remains unaffected by the gaze, the words, or the expectations of others, then one can experience a profound stillness and independence from within. This is the state of a liberated mind, requiring nothing external to remain at peace. Spending time alone is essential for rediscovering oneself. Without the noise of social media, news, work, or family, a person can finally hear the inner voice, so often drowned out. Stoicism emphasizes one who cannot be alone will never truly know who they are. Avoiding solitude often masks the fear of facing one's raw self. Unresolved thoughts, unhealed wounds, and neglected responsibilities. Solitude provides the space for reflection. One of the most vital Stoic disciplines, Epictetus urged that each day we examine what we've thought, said, and done, and ask, did I live according to my values? This cannot be done amid constant noise and distraction. It requires quiet, both outward and inward. Only by stepping out of the stream of daily life can we observe ourselves with honesty, without pretense or defense. A core tenet of Stoic thought is spiritual self-reliance. Marcus Aurelius stressed that our happiness should not depend on others. When we require someone's presence, affection, or approval to feel whole, we surrender our freedom. Solitude, even for a short while, is a way to test whether we are truly self-possessed or still reliant on external sources for emotional stability. Solitude is also an ideal space to train mental resilience. With no one around to affirm us, we are forced to confront ourselves. Without a mirror of others, we begin to see how we respond to silence, to being unseen, to inner emptiness. These emotions are not to be avoided, but understood and mastered. The Stoic does not flee emotion. They face it as a necessary part of being human, but they refuse to be ruled by it. Practicing short moments of solitude, an afternoon offline, a solo trip, or an hour of silent journaling are small but powerful acts. These moments help us distinguish what we truly think from what is shaped by our surroundings. They clarify our life's goals, what we genuinely desire versus what we pursue out of trend, pressure, or fear of being left behind. The ability to remain calm when alone is a sign of inner strength. Stoics believe that only when we are at ease in silence can we be at ease amid noise. If peace only exists in the company of others, it is not inner stability but dependence, easily shattered by a lost relationship, a job gone, or a simple misunderstanding. In contrast, the one who can dwell quietly with themselves remains balanced regardless of circumstance. Solitude also acts as a filter for relationships. When a person is comfortable with themselves, they no longer rush to fill a void with others. Relationships then form from choice, not need. They choose to be with someone because of resonance, not to escape loneliness. This makes for healthier bonds, free of control, possession, or fear of loss. Stoicism does not reject community or relationships. On the contrary, it encourages virtue and ethical conduct in human connection. However, Stoicism insists that only when one can live well with themselves can they offer good to others without harming themselves. Solitude is not for disconnection. It is for building a deeper foundation for connection. The quiet strength of solitude is not born from leaving the world, but from the courage to enter the world within. In silence, the most vital voices emerge, not the shouts of the ego, but the whispers of conscience, of reason, of long overlooked direction. Once we've learned to dwell peacefully in solitude, we no longer fear being left behind or misunderstood, for we've become the one who understands ourselves best. 6. True freedom is self-mastery. In modern society, the concept of freedom is often defined as the ability to do whatever one wants, to live according to personal desire, without constraint from laws, others, or circumstance. Yet in Stoic philosophy, freedom is not understood as an external condition, but as an inner capacity. True freedom is the ability to master oneself. This is the solid foundation that leads to inner peace and a life of purpose. According to Stoic thinkers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, a person is only truly free when they are not ruled by emotions, desires, fears, or external conditions. This means that even under restricted circumstances, poverty, illness, or even imprisonment, if one can maintain composure, reason, and mental autonomy, they are still free. Conversely, someone with every material comfort, who is ruled by emotion, impulse, and reflexive reaction, remains a prisoner nonetheless. A central Stoic principle is the clear distinction between what we can control and what we cannot. Epictetus outlines this in the Enchiridion, where he affirms, we control our thoughts, actions, beliefs, emotions, and reactions, but we cannot control the weather, outcomes, others' actions, or fortune. When people pour their time and energy into what cannot be controlled, they descend into exhaustion, frustration, and disorientation. But when they return to governing themselves, they reclaim the power to respond with reason to whatever arises. Self-mastery does not mean suppressing emotion or denying personal experience. On the contrary, Stoicism encourages lucid recognition of each emotion as it arises so we may respond wisely. When anger flares, the Stoic does not ignore or reject it, but observes it, identifies its cause, evaluates the rationality of their response, and chooses whether to act. This pause between feeling and reaction is the clearest sign of self-commustes. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, holding absolute authority, wrote often in his journals of the need to master yourself rather than others. This shows that regardless of social status, all face the same inner turbulence, and the key to not losing oneself lies in sustaining steadiness in thought and deed. A common sign of lost self-control is overreaction to negative words or behavior from others. Many let anger take full control, leading to actions they later regret. According to Stoicism, to let someone else make you angry is to let them control you. True freedom is the ability to pause, assess with objectivity, and choose a response based not on emotion, but on virtue. Self-mastery also reveals itself in how one faces failure, loss, or adversity. A Stoic understands that nothing lasts. Wealth, status, health are all beyond total control. When something is lost, they do not deny grief, but they do not let it linger without end. They return to the inner core, reason, virtue, and character, which no one can touch. That is the only place over which we have complete dominion, and the only place where true freedom resides. Freedom through self-control is not harshness or indifference. On the contrary, it is the mark of maturity and balance. A self-governed person is not without emotion, but is not governed by emotion. They may feel fear, worry, or disappointment, but still act according to their values and principles. In Stoicism, what matters is not what happens, but who we become in response to it. Another facet of self-control is the ability to manage desires. Stoics do not condemn desire, but they caution that unchecked craving leads to dependence and loss of freedom. When a person lets the need for praise, fame, success, or pleasure dictate their actions, they cease to be masters of their life. They become servants of their wants. True freedom is living in accordance with reason, whether or not one obtains what they seek. Practicing self-mastery requires discipline, awareness, and continual effort. Stoics encourage daily journaling for reflection. How did I respond today? What escaped my control? And how can I do better next time? This is not for self-condemnation, but for clearer understanding and gradual improvement. Because freedom is not a fixed state to be achieved and held forever. It is a constant practice, renewed with every thought, action, and choice. In Stoicism, true power does not belong to one who commands others, but to one who commands themselves. The less one depends on external conditions for peace, the less one is led by emotion, and the more one chooses reasoned responses, the closer they move toward real freedom. It is a kind of freedom that cannot be taken, because it relies on nothing outside the self. When a person understands that freedom is not doing whatever they want, but being able to refrain from doing what they shouldn't, they begin the path of self-mastery. On this path, control is not a restriction, but an intentional ordering of life around values, ideals, and conscience. This is the deepest and most enduring foundation of freedom in Stoic thought. 7. Owning nothing, yet having everything. In Stoic thought, happiness does not come from having more, but from needing less. At first glance, this may seem paradoxical in modern society, where personal worth is often measured by possessions, homes, assets, status, and reputation. Yet according to the Stoics, accumulation does not guarantee fulfillment. On the contrary, those who are not bound by material things, who refuse to let their peace depend on what lies beyond their control, are the ones who possess true wealth. the wealth of the inner life. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This forms the foundation of the Stoic idea of owning nothing, yet having everything. It is not a call to renounce all material possessions, but a call to detach one's self-worth from property, fame, and the ephemeral. When one is no longer shackled by material dependence, they encounter a deeper freedom of thought, of feeling, and of living. Stoicism does not deny the presence of material things in life, but it draws a clear line. Material goods should serve a life of virtue, not become its purpose. When possessions take center stage, one easily falls into the endless loop of desire. This leads to anxiety, fear of loss and and ultimately the loss of inner peace. To train detachment from material things, Stoics practice a technique known as negative visualization, imagining the loss of what they currently have. This exercise reminds us that everything we own, from homes and belongings to loved ones, can vanish at any time. Not to breed pessimism, but to deepen appreciation for the present and loosen the grip of dependence. When one can accept loss as a natural part of life, it no longer holds power over them. Another form of letting go involves releasing the need to possess others, emotionally and psychologically. In relationships, people often treat loved ones as emotional property. Excessive attachment leads to control, possessiveness, and unrealistic expectations. The Stoic learns to love without clinging, to care without claiming, for they understand that every person is a free being, and trying to control others only breeds suffering. Letting go in Stoicism is not indifference or apathy. It is a mindful posture, knowing what belongs to us and what does not. That which lies outside the inner life, wealth, praise, reputation, should not be the pillars of our happiness. Once this truth is clear, external things lose their grip. We can enjoy without attachment, experience without becoming ensnared. Marcus Aurelius, a man of supreme power, wrote, "Live as if you had lost everything, and then realize you still have yourself." This reveals that even for those who hold everything, releasing dependency on material things is essential to clarity. To remain composed amid gain and loss, success and failure, is the mark of someone rooted in inner strength. The ability to feel content without continual accumulation is part of the Stoic ideal of less, but deeper. When one stops comparing, stops chasing external metrics of success, they begin to discover sufficiency from within. It is the sense of a mind unshaken, a heart unafraid of lack, and in this owning nothing, one possesses everything: freedom, peace, and authentic value. Stoics also simulate lack, eating plainly, sleeping on the ground, dressing simply, not to suffer, but to remind themselves happiness does not depend on comfort. When one knows they can live with little, fear of change lessens. This strengthens will and liberates the mind from the anxiety of, what if I lose it all? The idea of owning nothing, yet having everything, also transforms our relationship with time. Without racing to acquire more, we slow down and savor the richness of each moment. No longer driven by the hunger to accumulate, we find time to read more deeply, love more slowly, observe more clearly, and live more deliberately. This is a wealth that no metric can measure, for it lies beyond material values. Moreover, abandoning the idea of ownership frees us from the fear of loss. When nothing is seen as mine forever, its departure cannot devastate us. The Stoic does not deny grief, but does not let grief define them. By recognizing the impermanence of all things, they remain composed in both joy and sorrow. Finally, to live as if owning nothing is to stay anchored in the present, rather than the future or past. The Stoic does not cling to what has been, nor fantasize about what may be. They live fully in each moment, knowing nothing is guaranteed to last, not even life itself. When I reflect on the core tenets of Stoicism, from letting go and mastering oneself to embracing solitude and detachment from material things, I realize this philosophy isn't reserved for scholars or hermits. It is for all of us, those navigating daily stress, pressure, and emotional turbulence. I used to believe that living deeply according to Stoicism required a total overhaul of my lifestyle. But in truth, small changes create lasting shifts. For example, instead of reacting instantly to criticism, I've learned to pause for a few seconds, observe my emotions, and choose my response. When a day feels overwhelming, I return to 3 simple questions. Is this within my control? What truly matters? Am I acting from reason or emotion? There is no perfect formula, but Stoicism has given me a compass to return inward whenever I lose direction. And I believe that if we practice patiently each day, freedom and peace will no longer be abstract ideals, but a very real part of our lived experience. If this video inspired you, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss what's coming next. Every interaction from you fuels our drive to continue sharing infos that are both profound and practical. And if there's one thing you take with you after this video, let it be this: we don't need to control everything to live fully. We only need to learn how to control ourselves. In letting go, you'll discover strength. In stillness, you'll recognize yourself. And with each steady step, you are already walking your path. See you in the next video.